bombshell story here in the Wall Street Journal about pay-to-play corruption. Trump Hotel received $270,000 from lobbying campaign tied to Saudis. Gulf Kingdom opposes law that lets Americans sue foreign countries over terrorist acts. Okay, so I'm going to give you the specifics of this in a second, but the law that they're referring to is a law that allows the families of 9/11 victims to sue the Saudi government because 15 of the 19, I think, hijackers were from Saudi Arabia, and there are credible allegations of Saudi Arabia funding jihadists and al-Qaeda and extremists the world over. So it would allow lawsuits. Now, President Obama vetoed the piece of legislation passed. President Obama vetoed it, and then it went back to Congress, and they overrode his veto. So it's already through, and there's not much Trump can do about that. But you're going to see the time frame here, and then I'll explain to you what ended up happening as a result of this money. So they say President Donald Trump's Washington hotel received roughly $270,000 in payments linked to Saudi Arabia as part of a lobbying campaign by the Gulf Kingdom against a controversial piece of terrorism legislation last year. The payments for catering, lodging, and parking were disclosed by the public relations firm MSL Group last week in paperwork filed with the Justice Department documenting foreign lobbying work on behalf of Saudi Arabia and other clients. As part of a lobbying effort against the Bipartisan Justice Against Sponsors of Terrorism Act, or JASTA, Saudi Arabia's Washington lobbyists and consultants spent approximately $190,000 on lodging, $78,000 on catering, and $1,600 on parking at the Trump International Hotel. The Daily Caller website first reported on the payments. So, here's how this works. They didn't actually use $190,000 worth of lodging or $78,000 worth of catering or $1,600 worth of parking. What they're doing is this is pay-to-play corruption. This is the same kind of thing that Donald Trump went after Hillary Clinton for with the Clinton Foundation during the campaign. By the way, rightly so, because she was doing pay-to-play corruption as well. So let's just get that fact out there. But that's exactly what's going on here. And the way it works is you can't have the Saudi government directly go to Donald Trump and say, here you go, I am going to give you money, and you can do favors for me. Can't do that. That's too obvious. That's too in your face. That would raise a million red flags. And even with our lax campaign finance laws and corruption laws, that would probably violate them. So what do? Well, Saudi Arabia gives the money to, a consulting firm, a lobbying firm, and the lobbying firm gives the money to the Trump Hotel. So, hey, Saudi Arabia didn't pay them. The lobbying firm paid them. Who knows where they got their money from, These are the oldest tricks in the book, and it's gross, because this is how politics really functions. Now, like I said, Saudi Arabia ultimately lost on this particular piece of legislation, the legislation that allows 9/11 families to sue the Saudi government. But think about what just happened recently. The first trip that President Trump makes as president, where does he go? Saudi Arabia. What does he announce when he's there? A $400 billion economic deal with Saudi, $110 billion of which is a weapons deal. So, you don't think this has influence? Of course it has influence. They're on the nice list as opposed to the naughty list. And they're on the nice list in part, but it's probably the biggest reason, because they dump cash into Donald Trump's businesses. And by the way, this is one of the main reasons why you're not supposed to have a president with business interests all over the world. Never mind even business interests in the U.S., because, you could have the same kind of thing happening where big corporations pay your businesses an obscene amount of money for services, and then you turn around and give them favors because you're the president. So it would be bad enough if it was just U.S. businesses, but we're talking about, he has businesses all over the world, and they happen to use one of his hotels in the U.S. to basically funnel a $270,000 bribe to him so that he can give them what they want. And what do they want? Well, there's a laundry list of stuff that they want. One of the things that we're going to cover more in detail in the future is the relationship with Qatar. Apparently, Qatar doesn't do exactly what the other Gulf countries want, including Saudi Arabia. And they're going rogue a little bit in Syria, and they funded Iran, and of course Iran is Saudi's sworn enemy. So now you have the UAE and Saudi Arabia severing ties with Qatar. Well, this is something they could never do unless they run it by their daddy, who's the U.S. president. And what does Donald Trump do? Green light. Green light for everything. Green light for the crackdown on the Shias in Bahrain. That's another thing. You know, they're supposed to... The U.S. is supposed to, at least when it comes to rhetoric, say, hey, pump your brakes with the crackdown, the violent crackdown on the Shias who are not in control in Bahrain. But no, Trump gives them the green light. You know, he gave a speech in Saudi Arabia where he's ranting about how Iran is the greatest state sponsor of terrorism. That's laughable. Saudi Arabia is the greatest state sponsor of terrorism. And, oh, yeah, they're the main problem, so we have to all unite against them. He's given them a green light to do an Arab-Sunni NATO. Yeah, what could go wrong in that situation? You have the Gulf, Sunni Arab countries who, what are they going to do? They're just going to set up, this giant air force and this military powerhouse for defensive reasons. Of course they're not going to do that. Enemy number one is going to be Iran. They'll find some pretense or pretext or whatever to go in there and do something. Lebanon too, similar situation. They might go after Lebanon. So this is really dangerous stuff. All they have to do is heap praise on our man-child president, funnel about $270,000 to him in his hotels. By the way, approve him registering 8 new businesses in Saudi Arabia when he was on the campaign trail. People don't talk about that. He registered 8 new businesses in Saudi Arabia when he was on the campaign trail running for president. Well, guess what? When you have financial entanglements like this, the U.S. is going to look the other way. So Trump says, I'm the big macho man, tough on radical Islamic terrorism. We got to stop being politically correct. Well, then why didn't you say anything about the fact that Saudi Arabia declares all atheists are terrorists when you gave a speech in Saudi Arabia? We got to stop being politically correct, but let me be politically correct and not talk about these taboo topics. What about the fact that women are second-class citizens? They can't drive. They need a guardian to go anywhere. Mr. Tough on Radical Islam, Mr. I'm a straight shooter, you couldn't bring that up in your speech in Saudi Arabia? And then they pretend, they do this tap dance like, no, Saudi Arabia is reforming. They're moving in the right direction. This is great, real freedom and democracy. Meanwhile, they criticize Iranian elections when Iranian elections are far more modern. They're far more democratic, even though they're ultimately not a democracy. Let's be serious. They're a Shia Islamist theocracy. But they're far more democratic, and they get shit on. But Saudi Arabia, way worse, they get praise. They behead people in the public square, for fuck's sake. For sorcery and witchcraft. What? And drug smuggling. They've banned liberal interpretations of Islam. And they fund extremist groups. So all they have to do is tell Trump, yeah, we're against extremism. And by the way, here, we're going to approve your 8 new businesses here that you registered pretty quickly, and here's $270,000, and will you let us do whatever we want? Yeah, you can go ahead and do whatever you want. So this is the same kind of shit he was ranting against Hillary Clinton about, rightly so, because she was doing pay-to-play as well. And this is the same kind of shit that he said we needed to fix in order to drain the swamp. He's not draining the swamp. He is the swamp. This is an establishment 101 move here. And we shouldn't really be all that surprised because ever since the day he started appointing top Goldman Sachs officials into his administration, we should have known. Everybody should have known. Oh, yeah, we've been had. He used to rant against Wall Street and Goldman Sachs on the campaign trail. Then he goes, okay, I would like to now hire the president of Goldman Sachs. What? In his administration. 2 Goldman Sachs officials, Gary Cohn and Steve Mnuchin, were the ones who wrote his tax plan and then proposed it. They gave these press conferences, Goldman Sachs guys going through the fucking provisions. This guy, Trump's so shameless that we need a new word to describe it. And you want to talk about pay-to-play corruption? Here's your pay-to-play corruption. He's doing a bigger economic deal and weapons deal with Saudi Arabia than Obama ever did, and Obama was horrible on the issue of Saudi Arabia. He gave them a lot of what they wanted too. So there you go. This is how politics functions. He's not draining the swamp. He is the fucking swamp. Now he's the establishment's bitch boy through and through.